Hello.
Hey, hello.
So, for folks who are just joining us for the first time ever, they've just wandered in off of the ether of the internet. Who are we? What are we doing?
That's a very good question. I am a first time StreamYard user, which is the thing we're using to stream right now. And my name is Laurent, and I work at Couchbase. I'm the director of developer relation, where I get to hire some wonderful people that you might have seen last week, and that you might also see now in the right or left of your screen. I don't know.
Yeah, everything is confusing, but very chill. So, Laurent is heading up the program that's letting Couchbase do these partner streams with us. And hello, I'm Jess with my favorite comrade, my wondrous bestie, Ramon. We run some free web development boot camps. And we had a lot of questions. So we've run about 6 or 7 boot camps. And we keep getting questions about how do I do this in the real world? How do I take this out of free code camp and put it in a proper application? And Laurent, we're gonna do that for real over the next 3 or 4 sessions.
Yes, I was going to say 3 or 4 hours, but it felt like a very long time.
Oh, it
Different
is
sessions,
the
different
biggest mood.
sessions. Yes.
And the one thing I'd warn, so learners who are following along with the boot camp or learners who are following along with free code camp, I just want to preview some things that we're going to do together that maybe people haven't done before, but that don't need to be scary. So we're going to go to our terminal.
Now?
I mean, not now, in a second. And we're going to be using that. And Naya in the partner streams previewed the terminal. So we're just going to be using that. And if you haven't seen it before, no big deal. We'll get you some resources. And we're also going to be using some JavaScript, which is actively scary, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, like 10
12.
being the great old ones and 0 being a bunny. How bad is JavaScript?
12.
12. So if you're following along and you haven't used JavaScript before and you're freaking out, it's all chill. We're going to make the code available. You can just steal it, borrow it, co-opt it, liberate it. And we're also going to be using a database for the first time, which shouldn't be too scary.
It's fine. As far as I'm concerned, it's fine. I've been in data for quite a long time, so I'm used to this weird thing. It's just IKEA for nerds. It's fine.
Oh, can we talk about that? Because you've used this analogy before. So a database is like
Oh,
the structure you can put things in. So
I just
like,
put myself on the spot right now. Yes, it is. Um, it's well, I mean, we are nerds. We store data. We like to order stuff, and we like to find them once we've stored them. And there's various ways to do this. You could put everything into a file and just read your file. That would be terrible because you would have to do everything manually. That'd be bad. What is the IKEA analogy for that? You could have a very big room and put everything under your bed. That'd be the right analogy. And or you could use shelf, different kinds of shelf. There's shelf for
okay,
bigger thing. There's shelf that auto expands. Shelf that goes this way. Shelf that go this way. You know, things to store stuff.
okay, things to store stuff. So I'm going to say that a database is like a warehouse with different kind of structures inside to store stuff.
Right. And when we say database, people think sometimes that there's already data in there. But no, we
Yeah.
are really
No.
just the furniture provider. We don't have anything pre-stored. We are
Okay.
just something to store some stuff
I love, I love how mysterious it sounds. A database, it's something to store some stuff. Okay.
and find them.
So, and we've already sort of been started off. So Naya showed us how to get VS Code, how to how to sign up to GitHub. We had a stream with the bootcamp guest earlier today with Rizal Scarlett, showing us a little bit more about how GitHub works. And we've also learned about how to deploy applications on Netlify. And if you're watching this now, you're like, wait, where is that? Just go to the past videos on your sort of platform of choice. If you could see us, go to past videos there, and those should be on hand. Fabulous. Shall we just do the thing?
Yes, sure. Let's go. Um, Scary thing first. Change of layout. Does it work? Yes, it works. Oh my god.
And this is Visual Studio Code, a code editor, a text editor, and this can't hurt us. This isn't too scary yet.
It's fine. And with a bunch of weird things that I've already added, which you might not need to see. But it's fine. Let's open a new folder. I use Windows, which might seem weird. And the problem with Windows that some people don't realize is that it doesn't handle file names as good as other system. So each time I'm writing code, I'm going back to the root of my hard drive, Windows, to C, and I go into my folder called code because I like to store things because I'm a big nerd, and I use databases. So I'm going to create a new folder into my code folder, and I'm going to call it freeCodeCamp survey something. Oh no, I'm going to use the fCC thing because that's I want to keep it short.
A nice little abbreviation, very laid back.
Yes, and I'm going to select that folder, and it's now opening probably at some point.
Nah, it's just programming. It can't actually hurt us. Computers aren't
Right.
real.
And there's nothing in there.
Yeah, but that makes sense. It's an empty folder, right?
Oh boy. Yes. Oh, there we
Yes.
go.
Everything's fine. So I'm just guessing.
Okay. Start new file. My small laptop.
I'm just guessing, but I guess that we need at least three different files. So learners who've been following along with the bootcamp probably know we need an HTML and CSS file.
Probably.
Yeah,
Let's call that index because that's what people do.
it is what people do. Very chill.
They do index. We need what? We need some
Oh, we need that
we need
structure, isn't
some
it?
CSS as well, some style sheets.
Oh, maybe just the
Some
option to do some styling later.
which really?
Yeah, we don't have to right now,
Anyway,
but maybe
it's
we might want
here,
to go back.
and we can
Yeah.
always use that at some point. All right. So you said free files.
Yeah. So this is new because we haven't done this with the boot camp yet. But I think are we going to need a JavaScript file?
We could do that, but I'm a very lazy
Good.
person, so I'm not going to do
Oh,
it.
you
And
had me at
everything in
lazy.
the like a terrible, terrible human being that I am. All right. So maybe I show you. Um, I think there's a page that shows the complete. Yes, this is this
Yeah.
thing.
I
Can you
was
see it?
thinking we could just steal.
Right. So how to steal some stuff from a website? Well, a couple of things you could do. You can just control save and save the thing, or you can be a developer and type. I think it's Control U, and what it's going to do is open the source code of that thing that you are going to store. The developer way of storing things.
So we're showing source here, and that's what's happened. Oh, could you be a bother and like command plus to embiggen it a little bit? Yeah. Oh, so we are properly stealing. So this is and I think this is important because the learners are going to do this on their own. We don't want to show them how to do any of the HTML and CSS. Could we just copy this and paste it into our file and not do the HTML part?
That's exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to do this as well for the CSS because again, very lazy. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, what? Jess, do you mind stealing? Never, not once.
Not once. All right. So just copy pasting all the things here. There's a
And
lot of things. So
we're
we might
seeing that
just trim
black
this down at
dot we
some point.
got. Oh yeah, do we want to only have one or two? You know what? We could,
Tell
I don't think the
like
learners have got
name.
the concept of a
Uh,
minimum viable product yet. Um, but what we want to do is we're going to cut this form down so that we're not looking at so much HTML that it's distracting. Do we want to take out everything but the name and email?
we could keep the email, yeah. I
Okay.
wanted to keep the age and checkbox just to get some different types because you probably know do you know what a string is already?
We have not
If you
talked about what a string is.
ah, when you store stuff in shelves, you can store different type of things, and when you're programming, you are talking about those things with types. So a letter or a number would be a character. Um, Lots of characters following each other would be a string of characters. You could also have a number, which would have its own type. You could also have a Boolean. There's a bunch of different things that have different purposes that are stored differently into databases. And this is what we can select some of those because that's going to be a bit more fun than just strings. So let's go with
Yeah.
strings and where's we have age, like age.
Which is going to be an
Age is good.
integer, which is a different kind. And for folks who are just experiencing data types for the first time, same thing as other programming. It's just new. It can't hurt you. Think of strings as a string of letters or numbers or characters, and that gets treated like an object by itself. Integers are whole numbers. Can we do a Boolean as well? Can we do a truey falsy?
Yes,
Truey falsy
absolutely.
being very, very technically important.
Zero or one, or
Or
true,
is there
falsy,
on or off?
on or off. So what is on or off? It's a checkbox basically. So let's find. No, there's a checkbox somewhere. Not a radio button. Um, There's a whole bunch of things in there. I don't need the text area. I do keep the submit button because it's good. I remove this thing. Goodbye. I
Yeah.
remove the select as
And
well.
s-
Yes.
so we've just stolen a little tiny snippet of code and we're using a tiny subset of this. So we've got a couple different things going on here. But do you know what's weighing the most heavily on my heart right now?
I do not know.
I can see that big black dot at the top, which means we haven't saved it. Oh, it's
Oh, I
gone. You've
think I
saved it.
just did. Yeah.
Just control S, just add a muscle memory. That's exactly what I want to bully the learners to learn.
I just that just happened. I did not foresee what you were going to say.
No, no, it's
It just
perfect. And that is exactly where I want everybody to get with programming, just like save as you go until it is something you try and press in your sleep. Is there a different way we could save this as well? Maybe a way that we could save different versions and have more control over it?
it's a different version. Are you talking about a versioning system?
Maybe.
But maybe. Yes, there is. It's called Git,
And we just
which
had
people have
Rizal
seen before.
Scarlett come and chat to us today about GitHub.
Um, there's something I like to show you before we do that.
Okay.
I mean, that's up to you. We can go Git already. I lost my notes. I have too many windows.
Everything's fine. Nothing bad is going to happen. I'd like to go ahead and say as well that that is absolutely true so far as the scope of this stream. Anything that happens outside the stream, that's not on me.
Or on me, or on
Oh,
Couchbase.
yeah. Anything that goes wrong
Um,
after the stream is done, that's Ramon's fault. So it's got to be somebody's fault. We're going to go ahead and blame the most charismatic person involved.
and the person that's also not here as usual. You always blame the person that's not here.
So,
Right. So at Netlify, we talk about Git. All right.
yeah, because we're going to want to put this in a Git repo and maybe one that we can show folks as we go.
All right. So let's do that. Do we want to look at that thing we just did before we
I think so. Do we
push
want to
this
see
to
what that
Git? Do
HTML
you want
looks
to
like?
look at that terrible, terrible thing that we just stole?
I don't think it's terrible. Oh, look at this. What's going on here? This is the terminal inside of VS Code.
VS Code. And
What you're
I'm
doing,
gonna
this
use.
feels really scary, but can we get this a little tiny bit bigger just to see what's going on with the code here? Because I want to talk through the code here with the command here. So here I see a path name, which feels scary in the terminal, but it's fine. It says go to my C drive, go to my code folder, and go to that brand new fCC survey I've just created. So scary, but it's not going to hurt us. Okay. And then I see the $sign, and we've learned that that $sign is where we put a terminal command. And you've said Firefox. Oh, heck.
Please continue.
was
And it doesn't work. Firefox. I swear I have Firefox on my computer because that's the kind of person I am. But
So what this would have done if this had worked
I don't know how to use
was
Windows. So instead, what's going to happen? It would have opened this, and it would have opened that file. But instead, what I'm going to do is do this manually, because voila. So let's go back again to code and fCC survey, and index of the HTML, and here we are. And it looks extremely responsive and extremely responsive, because you know what? The best way of being responsive is have no CSS at all. Which you might not
okay.
want to
So
quote me on
first of
that.
all, that's not true. But second of all, okay, so we don't have any CSS. It's not beautiful, but the stolen code we have works. I'm okay with that. Shall we get it up on GitHub?
Yes.
So what we're doing
right.
today is, as you do that, I'll explain pair programming. So I am pair programming, and we're pair programming. But as you may notice, whenever we're pair programming on the stream, you're doing all the hard work, and I'm asking you distracting questions as you go. It's a good way to live.
That's exactly what happens all the time. All right, so I'm on github.com, and there might be some place where there's a new button, but because I'm a huge nerd, I know that if I type github.com/new,
No.
it's going to take me exactly where I want, which is
Okay.
creating a new repository. Oops. There we go. Yeah, huge nerd. Let me go back to the normal page. There's a new button here, which is what you want to hit. Whoop.
That makes sense as well. I think that the github.com/new is going to feel really exciting as well.
They both work. They both they both bring you to the same thing. So now I'm going to choose my personal account, and I'm going to give a name to what I'm doing, which is going to be the name of my future repository, and I'm going to give it a description. This is the freeCodeCamp survey database fun bad website. It's good for SEO. Bad website club. Long description. And I'm going to make it public so that you guys can follow along. and that's what I'm going to do.
All easy. Oh gosh, so these are really these are things we've briefly touched on. We don't have to pick a license quite yet because that is definitely going to eat up the rest of this session if we're like, well, this license or that. Licenses are just exactly what they sound like. They're the rules you attach to your code. We'll talk about them more later in the boot camp.
There's one thing you need to know by default is that if you have no license, you are using copyrights. That's the default. Like, very few
Ah,
people know that, but actually, if there's no license, then it's copyrighted.
by default.
Yeah. So the good thing about GitHub is that when you do something, they usually tell you how to go one step beyond. And I just created my repository, so they're giving me exactly all the stuff I need to do to push my code.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type everything. Hey, Fujio. Hey, Fujio Turner has been with Couchbase for quite a while. I think you were here the first time I was here, which predates, like, what, 2016, 17?
No,
Something
no,
like
but no,
this.
the world didn't exist in 2017.
All right, so I'm going to do exactly what GitHub tells me to do. And I'm going to type that command. And what this command is doing is creating a new file with the content. So there we go. You can see that once I've typed this command, I actually have a README file that didn't exist before that with the exact same string, which is hash fCC survey. It's a markdown file. A markdown file is a way to format text differently. I don't know, Jess, you want to talk about markdown or
Yeah,
too soon?
so a lot of these we're just going to preview. If you haven't used the terminal before, don't worry if all these commands are brand new. You'd have to create a bypass to seriously break most things with your terminal. So it's okay to experiment a little bit. Um, and Markdown, it's a little bit like HTML, but different. So if it's okay, I want to talk about what you just did with git init. And it's not like init like British init. It's
Yes.
so really you've copied and pasted this over,
And
but by saying git init, it initialized it. And I love this because this is one of those magic words where you say, I want to initialize a repository, and it says, I've created your repository. Absolutely magical. And then you've added, so git add, you've added that README file you've just created.
yes, yes. And I can add other things like the file we just saw, the index file. Oops, let's do that.
What if you wanted to add everything at the same time?
Add
Or all
all
the
the
new
things.
stuff in your folder, in your repo?
I rarely do that. What you want to do
Really?
maybe is do something like this. It's called git status. And what it tells you is the state of your repo. Right now I'm on this new branch called main. I haven't done any commits. I added readme, and I still have two untracked file index and style. I could do something like this and without all the
That's what
things.
I do. I do that all the time. That is cruise control for me messing up, and I love it.
So you can
Although
do
me
that.
saying it's cruise control for me messing up is not super encouraging, is it?
I mean, it's the first commit you're doing, so you might as well just, leave
Yeah, yeah.
dangerously and add all the
So
things.
git add full
Which I
stop.
did.
Yeah.
All right. And then after you've added all the stuff, Git tells you to do a commit, which is your first commit.
So far, git
Here we
add is
are.
like, hey, put all these things into a staging area. And then git commit is like, no, actually put them into my repo. Okay.
And then it tells you a whole bunch of things like using the branch main, which I'm already using. And then that's the scary part. bit. This is transforming this. It's creating a link to the one that's on GitHub. And now all I have to do is push my stuff to the remote branch that's just created. And it's going to ask me for my
Yeah.
SSH key because I'm using Windows and it's not automatic because why not? And it's going to ask me for the second time somewhere.
So these are a
Oops.
little bit hard. So
Voila.
SSH keys, these are kind of security keys that you know or should know, that kind of act as an extra layer of almost passwords. So you're saying, "Hey, I'm me," and GitHub is saying, "Okay, yeah, I think you might be you. Show me your key."
Is there another analogy to have with a warehouse? Can you enter freely into a warehouse? No, you need to show your, well, either you have the keys or you don't have the keys. I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Maybe I'm
I think
overdoing it.
keys are quite a good model for keys.
Absolutely. So I just did git push. It did a whole bunch of things. It wrote a whole bunch of things. And now if I go to my GitHub page and I reload the page,
Ah,
I
ah.
have
Oh,
all the
it
things
worked. I didn't mean to
that I
sound
just
so
added,
surprised, so impressed.
which means
And
it
our
works.
README, that markdown is shown right on this page.
I think yes, and it's um, big. It's not just some text. It's some. I mean, you can't see this because there's only one thing written, but it's
Ooh,
actually an H1, an HTML H1 because we had only one hash in the Markdown file.
amazing.
Do you want a proof of that? And something I'm
I
not
do.
really.
I'd like to. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I wanted the proof a different way. I was going to say, can you share the
Huh.
link to this GitHub repo? Because I'd love to see if we can show folks stuff like code coming into the repo in real time.
Oh, you mean here, directly in
Yeah, heck
GitHub?
yeah. Well, I mean,
Oh,
share the
okay.
GitHub repo in the chat and people will be able to see it.
That's very true.
Sorry, what I meant is, ha ha ha, tab between windows more.
That's all right. Anyway, do you guys know what you people know what a web console is?
We haven't
Like
had
this
our web
thing that's
console
taking off
talk
my screen?
yet, but we probably will
All
have somebody
right.
in.
That's all right then. Plus, it's too small, so you cannot see. Um, but basically, it was the source code of that thing that you see here. Anyway, I just sent you the link to the repo. You can all follow along. We can do something fun. And we can already modify it while we are on GitHub. Um, some weird warning about me using Windows again.
Really
And
useful to show
add
windows.
some other text. Well, I feel like it doesn't get enough attention or love. I've been using Linux for what I don't want to count, but for a long time, and yeah, I sort of forgot about Windows and realized that in 2023 it's not as bad as it used to be, which I would never have thought I would say one day, 15 years ago.
And the thing is, so I just tend to work off of the computers that my former employers gave me a long time ago. Um, but I'm conscious that globally, more and more people are on Windows than Macs developing. It's fair.
Absolutely. You know what happened to my former computer that my employer gave me a long time ago? I've resetted everything, installed Ubuntu, and I just gave it to a friend that's following FreeCodeCamp since, well, yesterday.
Oh,
So
how
much pressure.
lovely. Wait, I'm going to add even more pressure because we've got to go, go, go. So we've pasted our tutorial
We
code in VS Code. We've created a new repo. You're saying that we might not need a JavaScript file, that we can put it all inside the HTML?
Yes,
Would
we
it be
can.
very stressful for you if we had it in a separate JavaScript file?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
we can do both, right? We can be stupid and do the things the lazy way, which
Just
would get
because
people
we're gonna be
mad.
teaching the JavaScript bootcamp next, and the first couple of lessons, it's like, "Let's put our script inside of HTML," and then it almost immediately tells us, "No, nobody does that." So, you've just very
I
quickly
guess.
created a script element tag, a closing script element tag, and then you put a little alert line of JavaScript that says hello. So this is the power of 12 out of 10 hard JavaScript. This isn't going to hurt us, but this shows us, hey, it gives us that level of functionality, that level of doing things that HTML and CSS don't have on their own. Huh.
I guess the main thing about this also is that HTML and CSS and JavaScript are so intertwined on the browser. Like everything you want to do with your HTML code, you want stuff to move, to change. Everything is driven by JavaScript all the time. They're very like they've been created to go together somehow. JavaScript going out of the browser is actually somewhat recent.
Yeah. I'm actually going to grab it because we had do you know Bruce Lawson by any chance?
Not personally.
Oh, he gave us a talk about how to make loveliness, which is a very on brand. Um, and he gave us this great talk saying, hey, and one of his big points is that, and this, the way he says this is maybe weird for a non native speaker, but he says, built in beats bolt on bigly. So if it's something that HTML or CSS or JavaScript already know how to do built into the language, don't add a framework, don't add a plugin, don't add a silly trick. Just trust the inbuilt and, like you said, built for the web processes. Yeah.
All right, so I have my weird page that when I reload display an alert because hey JavaScript. But now we want to separate things because separation of concern is a good thing to do.
Yeah. And
Is
separation of
that is this
concerns
why
here
you want
while
to
you're
do
doing
that?
this just means that everything goes in its own little place. And you're being very patient to me because putting the script tag in here and writing a bunch of JavaScript in here would wear me out.
No, it's the lazy way. How do I want to call that form? Let's call that form.js because JS is
Oh, that's the file extension for
thing
JavaScript.
that is the extension that people use for JavaScript files. Um,
And what you're doing here is we're creating this little alert, this little pop up again, to sort of show us this works. But I don't think this is going to
Um,
work.
so I did the exams that I'm doing this never because I'm so lazy. Um, but I think that's gonna work. Might work.
Okay,
Might
because
not work.
learner says that you need
It
to link it in
works.
your what? Stop it. You don't need to link it to your HTML file?
What do
Oh,
you
you
mean
did
link
it
it to
right
your HTML file?
there. Oh,
Laziness.
okay. Hmm. That is technically
So
correct. My favorite type of correct.
yeah, it's sort of work. A couple of things about JavaScript. You can put it in different places. You can put it at the
Yeah.
end of the HTML file, and it's going to be read at the end. Or you can, if you really want the thing to be loaded before everything else, before anything starts, then you could put it up there. And actually, that's
So,
interesting. Before I reload, I should be able to show you the difference.
yeah.
You can see that there's some stuff behind, and then the box. And I think if I do it this way, and reload, it does the exact same thing. I was wrong.
It's lovely to
This
learn
is
in real life.
confusing.
Ah, it's just programming. It can't hurt us.
Ah, yeah, I know, that's what I wanted.
Okay, so it loaded the
So you
JavaScript
could see that
before
by
the rest of
clicking
the
at
page.
the end, so you don't see anything like we had before here.
Huh.
That's the difference between the things. Anyway, we have a JavaScript file. It does stuff. It's in the page. We have HTML.
So
We have a somewhat ugly HTML, but it's fine.
I'm going to send us somewhere else. I'm going to send us on another
So
tour. So we've got our HTML, we've got our CSS, we've got our
go ahead.
JavaScript. I think we need to go get our database. I think we need to go find what database we're going to use, and I bet I can guess which one. And I think we're going to have to get sort of database access, if that makes sense. We're going to have to sign up for something or go get something.
I mean, define get. It's the internet. Can we get stuff from the internet?
I mean, we just stole some HTML, so
We
I
are
think we
going
can
to
get
do
stuff.
that.
Which database will we try?
We can get stuff.
Maybe one with a orange and red logo?
Couchbase on the cloud,
Couchbase.
cloud.couchbase.com. 30 days trial, no credit card required.
Um, that makes sense.
Yes, so
It's a Couchbase.
cloud.couchbase.com, anybody can sign up. Please go ahead.
Oh, no.
I was in vendor mode. Couchbase, cloud.couchbase.com, no credit card required. 30 days trial.
And I'm going to be a little bit mean. So I massively appreciate doing this with Couchbase. But the main point of these streams is we want to teach you to do stuff. We don't want to be like Couchbase unless you're just like really hyped to use Couchbase, in which case, oh, cool, we're hyped alongside you. But this is not the only database that exists. This is just the database where we're starting out on. Everything's fine. If you decide that you like the world's most obscure database or a database because it's got like a cute piglet as a logo, there's a I don't know if there's one with a piglet logo.
That'd be
Um,
great.
I mean, you could tell Couchbase that the users demand a rebrand where there's a fluffy little piglet.
I mean, the best way to know about those things is to go to a database about database.
There is not, of course, there's a
It's
database
called
about database.
dbdb.io, and it's for database nerds such as myself. Well, of course there is. But we can't
I
see all the
just
logos at the
I
same time, so we probably wouldn't know if that thing exists.
I will never doubt you again. There is indeed a database of databases. I give up.
So about that choice thing that you talked about,
Yeah.
that's how much database there is in the world right now. Um, and Couchbase being one of them. And just like IKEA is selling some shelves, you have other people that sell shelves. Well, there we go. You have other people that do database.
So let's sign up for
Anyway,
Capella.
um,
Sorry,
Couchbase
now I'm in
Capella.
vendor
So
mode.
Couchbase is it's yeah, absolutely. A database can be installed on your computer. Oh, good question from Fujio. Fujio asks, do we know what is the
Oh,
meaning of Couchbase?
it's
I'm
a
gonna let you.
base for resting. Could you help us? What does it mean? What is it?
I'm gonna
We've
I'm
had
gonna let people
questions this
try to
whole
guess on
time.
the chat.
So we keep getting really good questions where folks ask like existential programming questions. And is it cheating if I look at Wikipedia?
Wikipedia is not cheating. Every school should have an access to. You should be able to access Wikipedia. I think. Oh, someone knows.
Oh, who knows?
Um,
Haley, come on. You can't just say I mean you can. I'm clearly not the boss of you. Um architecture,
I mean,
data manager.
like
Hmm. Okay, it's telling me a lot of really important technical things and not why is it called Couchbase? Originally known as
Oh, you have
Membase.
two different answers. That's interesting. Two different, somewhat similar answer. I have a third answer for that. Um so if we just say it's a cluster of unreliable, a cluster of unreliable, crappy hardware.
And
My
hardware
own
are
definition
like
was
the
thing you find at
physical
the hardware
things
store.
in computing.
Absolutely. And base equal membase, which is true. Couchbase is the product of two former database, CouchDB, which is still living its own line in the Apache Software Foundation, and Membase, which was a key value distributed database.
So it's
So that's
like a
Couchbase.
Mr. Sparkle type deal where they just stuck two halves together.
Well, I mean, some people would say fork, other people would say merge. It depends on who you ask, really.
Eh,
It's a merger. So cluster of unreliable crappy hardware, you also have cluster of unreliable cheap hardware, or you also have a collection of unreliable commodity hardware. Point is, it started in 2005 or 6 when the cloud started, and it was really, well, I'm not going to say really cheap because that's not true, but it was cheaper to get access to lots of hardware from the cloud. And so that's why one of the reasons why it started out. But anyway, we have to move. So I'm going to sign up. Right now it's a sign in because I have like several Couchbase Capella accounts. But I'm going to sign up for free. My name is Laurent Doguin. I'm going to use an address with a plus because people at Couchbase can have several accounts. Unfortunately, it doesn't work if you don't have a Couchbase email address, so don't use a plus. I can do it, but you can't.
do as we say,
fCC, and
not as we
then
do.
right, get started. And
Oh,
what it's
I'm
going to
actually.
do is
Oh,
send me a code. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say you probably don't want to show your email.
I'm not going to show my email. I mean, I am going to open it soon if it opens
Yeah.
on that side of my screen, which you don't see.
I mean,
And there it is. I'm going to close that afterwards. Um,
and if folks have any questions as they're doing this, we've got the we've got there's a bunch of different Discords people hang out with. There's the free code camp one, which is great. We've got one for the Bad Website Club. And I think, is there a Couchbase Discord as well in case people get stuck?
so what was that?
Well, I was just looking for a
I
link for
wasn't paying
Couchbase
attention. I'm sorry. I
Discord
was.
server. No, gosh, you're fine. Everything's
Oh,
fine.
right. My Discord server. It's somewhere on another window. Anyway,
Oh,
I'm
fine.
creating my account. I'm creating my 30 days trial. I'm keeping the default because why not? Or maybe I'm just gonna choose Europe because it's closer than from where I am. And then what it's going to do is create a new Couchbase cluster for me. And yes, good question or assumption. Um, Someone is asking if is there only a free 30 days trial? The reason the answer is yes. Right now, the free tier is coming. I don't know exactly when, but we're working on that. There's a bunch of technical reasons why we can't really offer a free tier without going bankrupt. So it is coming. I am not sure exactly when. I would love to tell you before the end of the year. That's my very, very, very optimistic uh, impression. So everybody, keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully that's going to happen.
So for right now, it is only a 30-day trial. I'm so sorry. But
Yes.
there's no credit cards involved, so I'm not so yeah. The big thing I get stressed about is, will I forget about this and will this charge me all of the money? Amazon. Uh, but
Right.
luckily,
That being said,
it works.
yeah, um, yeah,
Is
I'm
there a way to
using the
forget the
cloud
cloud
version of
system to make
Couchbase,
my
but
life?
well, I mean, you don't have to use something in the cloud. You can use your own machine and you can install Couchbase on your own computer because Couchbase is open source. There's a community edition, there's an enterprise edition. You can do download Couchbase, you can do Couchbase, Docker and Couchbase that works as well. It's just like any other database. You can install it on your own computer. It's fine. You don't have to put it in the internet.
Yeah, I'm just grabbing the community edition to drop the
Um,
link. Oh, cool. You've got it. This is good.
check, check, check. No, I'm just posting the link to the Discord.
Amazing.
Um,
And
check, 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 check.
I'm cheating because I haven't lost track of our to-do list for this stream.
We have a to-do list.
Yeah.
All right, so I have my Couchbase account, which is making me really happy, and there's a bunch of things I can do. I can explore data, import data, and I can go under the playground. Let's try and hit data tools, which of course doesn't work when I click on the wrong window. Um, and yes, you can see that when you create your first trial, we import a whole bunch of documents for you. Couchbase is a JSON database, so you can see JSON document.
And Jason's like a
And
JavaScript
we import
object.
travel sample, so travel data. That's is that exactly what it is? JavaScript object notation. I think that's the acronym. I think is JavaScript object notation.
Just simple object notation. Oh, and we've got a really good point. Could we embiggen this just a little bit?
Probably something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
I'm just grabbing the link for the community
Um,
edition. Everything's chill.
so what you see right now is my bucket in Couchbase. We store stuff into a bucket. The bucket is called travel sample, and the bucket is subdivided into scope. And in scope, you have what we call collections. So if you're familiar with other databases, it's kind of a schema database table sort of story. So we have a travel sample with airline, with airport, with hotel, with route, with a bunch of things. Let me click on an airline, and you should see a JSON
Ooh.
document that represents an airline.
Yeah.
You can, of course, query those documents. You can take a look at your index because in
Ah,
database you would create indexes to find your stuff better. So if you're going into a warehouse or if you have lots of shelf, you probably have a list of stuff that tells you where to go to find the right shelf. Like let's say, we're taking that metaphor maybe too far, but you have a warehouse full of shelf. When you enter the warehouse and you're looking for something, you need to know in which alley to go, in which room, in which, and so index
yeah.
is the thing that's going to tell you, I'm looking for this. This kind of stuff should be in this alley, in this place, in this over there. So that's why index are so cool. You can do search, you can import, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. They're not necessarily going to go too deep today on this
I
because
think we might speak
we have
through
only
some of the
11 minutes
database
left.
stuff. Yeah. Oh gosh, and that's a really good point. If anybody has any questions as we go, just go ahead and let us know and we'll address them. But in these 11 minutes we have left, I was going to see, can we do our credential creation?
We can.
Yeah.
We can
Ooh,
absolutely
learner
do
points
that.
out
Let
that
me
SQL, just while you're doing that, I'll say distracting things. I love this. Learner, I'm always picking on you for being so useful, but SQL is an English like programming languages that reads from databases?
Absolutely. It's a what, fourth generation programming language? Should use Wikipedia for that because that's too much information. Um, but it's cool. I wanted to show you quickly, if you're curious, before if you want to keep looking into this thing, we have a playground. So let me go back and show you where it comes from.
Yeah.
There's the start. You can do a bunch of things. You can explore, and there's this thing called playground. And what playground is, it's a bunch of tutorial. You can see the SDKs. That's what we're going to use next week tomorrow to do some JavaScript. Or you can do SQL, which is the query language that we use to query our airline data. And so you can see an example, and I just run the example, and you get the result. And if you want to learn SQL on your own, this is pretty cool. I encourage you to try that. Now, about
And
credential, let's do this.
yeah,
Um,
while you're doing that, I will point out that a lot of employers are going to ask you about being able to write SQL or if you've built something with a NoSQL database. As we go, when we start putting the database together with our application, we'll talk about what SQL and NoSQL means. It can't hurt you yet. It's just another sort of programming like language. And it's sort of the same way HTML is to put stuff on the web, and CSS is the rules of style, and JavaScript, it gives you that functionality. Yeah, Lerner makes a fantastic point that SQL is just to talk to databases, just a really hyper specific one.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and create a database access. Everything I'm doing here, if you're following along, please remember the username and the password, because once you've set up your password, you can't really find it again. So this is a SQL database. Oh, that's a very good question. Is it SQL? Is it NoSQL? What makes a NoSQL database? Is it JSON? Is it the absence of schema? Now, every SQL database have JSON, and every NoSQL database have SQL. What are we going to do? It's terrible. Everything is terrible.
Everything is fine. Don't listen to Laurent. Nothing, I mean, again, everything can hurt you, but this is just programming. So this is a SQL-y NoSQL database. And we'll cover this a lot more tomorrow and a lot more Wednesday.
Right. So database access. I have a username. I have a password. Don't forget that password. And I'm setting up different access, because you can have different credentials, different users that have access to different part of your database, so different part of that warehouse. Some people are not allowed to go into this room or this room. Same thing here. But because I'm lazy and because it's just trial, I'm going to give access to everything, and I'm going to get the read and write access. I'm going to do that mostly because I'm going to create another bucket. Right now, we only have the travel sample, but we are going to create a bucket specifically for our survey result. So there you go, database credential created. There's a couple of other things we need to do to be ready. It's not just about the credential. You want that database to be accessible from anywhere, because right now it's private. When you start something in the cloud, by default, it is private. You don't want something to be publicly available on internet, because that would be bad. Because there are really bad people out there that do things to databases that are open to the internet.
So we want to
So I'm
have
going to go
it
to allowed IP
online, but
addresses.
not super online. That makes sense.
Exactly. So what you can do, there's a couple of things you can do. You can add your current IP address, which means that from your computer and only your computer or your connection, your internet connection, you'll be able to access this. Or you can be a terrible human being like me and allow access to anyone from anywhere, which is fine because we
Anytime,
created a user with a very strong password.
No, whenever
anytime.
somebody says something like that, they mean don't do this. Anytime you get a little red pop-up warning, this is, "Hey, this is good for teaching, but you probably never wanna do this." Almost never.
Almost never. For it works for demos as well, sometimes. So what it did, clicking this button, is pre-fill this form. So it's 0.0.0.0/0, which is the IP range. The IP is what is the identification of your internet connection. And here I'm saying, well, everything is allowed. So
Yeah.
everything is allowed soon. So I have my credential. I am open to be connected to. And now what I need is a new bucket. Um, so let's go ahead, still in settings. You can see that I have the travel sample bucket that I showed you earlier that already exists. And I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to call it survey form because why not? And then I can choose different option. Um, is it going to be only in memory? Is it going to be written on disk? Couchbase, from its mem-based heritage, comes from the in-memory side of things, so caching, because in hardware, on a computer, it's faster to read on the RAM than it is to read on the disk. And so what people did when SSD and hard drive were slower and very expensive, they would store a whole bunch, and still is actually still much faster. They would store lot of stuff into the RAM, into the memory, because it's
Okay.
fast. So that's where you have the option. I'm going to use memory and disk. I'm going to keep all the defaults. Cache Store is one of our backend. We have a new backend called Magma, uh, which is great. A bunch of things that we don't have to talk about necessarily today. I'm just going to use enable flush. Flush is allowing you to delete everything in the click of a button or the call of a REST API. It is dangerous, but we leave dangerously, and also it's not production. It's the
Yeah.
bad website cloud.
Cool. So we probably wouldn't do this on our boss's project, but on our project, its ability to hurt us is much less. It's much more contained.
It's an ability to start over. It's great.
Fabulous.
Mm. So we have a GitHub repo, we have a Couchbase database, we have an HTML page, we have a CSS. No, we don't have a CSS actually, but that's all right. And we have a
But
JavaScript
the
thing,
file
and
exists.
they more or less work together. Um, so yeah,
And we're going to come back tomorrow and
it's
we're going
not
to
too bad
start writing the
in an hour
JavaScript and
of me
gluing all this
talking too
together.
much.
Yeah.
Absolutely, more JavaScripts coming your way tomorrow.
Fantastic. So, just looking at the quick questions, CZMT asks, so Couchbase, is this a SQL database? That's a long
Well, that's
pause.
the
That
thing.
pause is meaningful. Like,
Oh, it's lag. It's the network lag. Of course, it's not. It's a very hard question to answer to because things have changed so much. Um, I think SQL and NoSQL are not as relevant as RDBMS and other stuff. What an RDBMS is a relational database management system. You store stuff into a table, and those tables have columns, and those columns have values, and you will link table to table because things have relation, which is why it's called a relational database. That's what most people used for before NoSQL for the past 20, 30 years. And the query language for that was SQL. That's the query language
yeah,
you used to go through all those relations between those tables. And it's a very cool query language because it allows you to express so many things in English. It's amazing. But the problem that RDBMS has is was really hard to scale. So people come up with a new way of storing things that was more scalable. We could store more things, but to do that, we had to move away from storing stuff into table and columns, and it created a new architecture, and that was CouchDB and MongoDB and Couchbase and other stuff. And at the time, it was the easiest way to store many things. But we were sad because we couldn't use SQL because, well, this thing was new, and we had to implement SQL into that new way of storing things. Um, Fortunately, 15 years later, every NoSQL database now have some sort of SQL language
Okay.
support. So that's why it is SQL. But the NoSQL comes from the more of the way we store things than the way we query them now.
That's, yeah, very philosophical. Cool. Learner puts this really well to say, you know what, these days, NoSQL just means now it does SQL and other stuff. So now NoSQL means not only SQL, which I think is a very meditative way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody was very hell bent into its no, and never really was just about no. It was about other stuff, other workloads.
Not only.
Now, many
No.
databases, if you were not only many databases have different workloads. You can do SQL, you can do search, you can do a different kind of SQL, you can do analytics, you can do like, lots of different things. Now it's all about vector search because of AI. It's getting very popular. So AI is just vector search is just a way of specializing existing search engine into a different way. Basically, a search engine is um, I'm typing dragons on my search engine, and it's going to give me result for everything that has dragon, singular or plural, which is cool. A vector search would be if you're typing dragons, it's also gonna give you results if you're typing big lizard. That's how vector
Yeah,
search works somewhat. It's about giving you results that are very close semantically to the term you were looking for instead of uh, grammarly, orthographically, whatever.
perfect. Thank you
Anyway,
so much.
lots of different workloads.
All very chill. I'm going to go ahead and, if it's not a bother, say goodbye to you and escape.
It is time to escape. It is 7 p.m. for me, so
And
I'm off
next
to
time,
be
we're
on
just going
dinner.
to write a heck ton of JavaScript. Just JavaScript, JavaScript, JavaScript.
Yes, tomorrow in 23 hours we'll be here. All right, thank you so much.
Amazing. Bye, everybody.
Cheers, bye.